So my shirt is from Grass Fields. It's a crop top. And my candle, Cultured Naturals, made here in St. Croix. I'll put a link to these businesses in the description bar. But yeah, today's conversation is going to be about post-grad depression, and I think that's a very important topic to discuss because the class of 2020 is they're about to face a really bumpy road. But I wrote a blog post on my personal blog, I think it was in 2019, and then I moved over the post to Medium either late last year or early this year. But I just thought that it would be so important to share a few of the points that I learned in my journey and my experience with post-grad depression, even though I can't imagine what the class of 2020 is going through, being thrown into the middle of a pandemic, crashing economy, racial tensions. Like I didn't experience any of that, but I hope that the few tips that I could bring to the table could help someone to find solace. So here we go. So I'm originally from a small island in the Caribbean called Antigua. I was born and was raised on Antigua, and I lived there for 16 years until I went to Trinidad to study accounting for 4 years. And then midway through my studies, my family migrated to St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands. That is an American territory. So 16 years Antigua, 4 years Trinidad, and 6 years of living in St. Croix. I enjoyed living in Antigua. Antigua is literally paradise. I might have my own personal bias when it comes to this, but to me, Antigua is paradise. And Trinidad, it has like a lot of life, it has lots of movement, and I really enjoyed studying those 4 years there. It was just great. After I graduated and I moved to St. Croix, I experienced culture shock. Around the time when we migrated to St. Croix, one of the world's largest oil refineries had closed down, called Hess or Hovensa, and that just threw St. Croix and the US Virgin Islands into a spiral. A lot of people had to migrate to the mainland. A lot of people had to leave for the States because they lost their jobs. Has really employed thousands of people, and it really helped to boost the economy. And when it shut down, like, things were not the same on the island. Like, the pace of life was slow. There were so many empty apartments and places for lease. The closure of one of the world's largest oil refineries, which was located in St. Croix, just did not do any justice for St. Croix at all. The island's atmosphere was gloomy. At night, the streets were comparably desolate to the ones I had come to know in Antigua and Trinidad. And to top it all off, I just was not able to replicate the friendships and the bonds I had formed in Antigua or Trinidad in St. Croix. Coupled with moving so far away from family and friends, not knowing what the job market was going to look like, having a place where everybody was relatively depressed because they didn't know what the outlook on life was going to be. They didn't know where to find jobs, a whole bunch of stuff. It was just so uncertain. So you tend to absorb that kind of energy. Well, I mean, not everybody does, but it was difficult not to notice the discontentment in the air for those first couple of years living here in the US Virgin Islands. I felt so drained, out of touch, confused, and I kind of cocooned myself in a shell when, you know, social media and the internet makes it so easy to stay connected to your friends and loved ones abroad. And I know not everybody's experience after graduation is the same. Some people, they transition pretty well from university life to like the real world. They fare pretty well with adulting. They have no problems, but that just wasn't me. I kind of went within myself, and there were so many other factors which, you know, I can't really be vocal about, but that really, multiple other factors which really affected my mental health, affected my mental space, and I felt like there's no one I could really go to, no one I could really turn to. Needless to say, I think that my friends who lived abroad in Trinidad and Antigua, I think that they would have really liked for me to reach out and connect with them and tell them how I was feeling, but I just didn't know how. And these same friends, they were going through issues of their own. Some of them had family members who were sick and dying of cancer, family members who had already died. Some of them didn't know how they're going to pay back for their student loans. Some of them couldn't find jobs. And some were going through breakups from long-term relationships. Some were trying to figure out where they were supposed to live. So I mean, in retrospect, it probably seemed as if I had a really cushy and comfy life. So I'm like, okay, I can't bother anyone. But the mistake that we make is that this is how we spiral out of control when it comes to our mental health. We don't deal with the little things. We don't open up and be transparent, and we talk to people who love us and who care about us. A small problem just explodes into a major one. And so I kept that all bottled up inside, and I didn't just not reach out to my friends about my mental health. I just stopped reaching out, period. And I kind of like, I was stuck inside my room. I was always sad. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to open up. It just wasn't a wise thing to do. I am definitely in a much better place now, 6 years later. There are still some things that I'm learning to do to better my mental health, and one of them is self-care, and that could be a whole different video all by itself. But for those in the class of 2020 who are offended, because everybody from the class of 2020 right now, they have uncertain futures. Like, even if you think your future is certain, 2020 has taught us that anything could happen. Anything could put a wrench into our plans. We are not prepared for the inevitable and the things that we just didn't know could exist, could happen. I mean, no one could have prepared us for everything that has happened in 2020. But yeah, I just want to give a bit of advice, things that I learned the hard way, based on the article that I wrote on my blog and on Medium. I'm going to put a link in the description box in case you prefer to read versus, you know, maybe you're not an audio-visual person. But if you find any of these tips helpful, make sure to pass them along to a friend. Well, firstly, do not try to replicate bonds that you formed in college. Try to form new ones. My first error when I moved to St. Croix is that I tried to look for familiar faces in new ones. And don't get me wrong, well, on St. Croix I met some really amazing people, but I think I was looking for like a continuation of everything that I have learned and come to understand in Antigua and Trinidad. The transition between Antigua and Trinidad were not, you know, it wasn't that bad because I felt like I was going into a similar environment. It kind of was. You know, it was a small college, a small university, and it was very similar to my high school. It was just like it just felt like stepping over the pond a bit. Moving to St. Croix, it was just a completely different ball game. I think that made it evident that I was not home. And what I want you guys to know is that in whatever situation you find yourself in after college, home is where you say it is. You have to allow yourself to make your surroundings homey and comfortable. You cannot continue to live in a space as if it's a strange space. So you get a new room, you get a new apartment, you get a new house. You have to create your home. And you can't make a home out of people. I think Watson Shire said that. You have to cherish what was and make room for all that will be. 2, accept that things will not be the same and adjust accordingly. And I think one of the best ways to transition into a place that is extremely different is to find one place that reminds you of home. For example, if you live in the Caribbean, most Caribbean islands, they all have a beach. And if I could have done this all over again, I would have made sure to spend more time in nature, more time at the beach, because that would have made the transition easier. A place where I could always return when I feel confused or lonely or angry or sad or drained or like just tired of the unfamiliar. Essentially, you're looking for a neutral place, a place that provides you comfort, not a place that enables your sadness, a place where you could easily reset. 3, do not isolate yourself from your loved ones. Additionally, be vulnerable. Instead of confiding in my friends, I withdrew. I isolated myself mainly because West Indians or Caribbean people do not naturally foster an environment to talk about mental health issues. It's something that we're working on. It's something that we're becoming more vocal on, especially the generation of millennials and Gen Z. We are definitely a vocal generation. We connect with the internet. We don't just focus on word of mouth or formal education. We look for knowledge ourselves, and we are very quick to educate each other. That being said, this fear that West Indians have of opening up and being judged and being vulnerable and being called weak really impacts the way that we open up to our loved ones, and we end up bottling things up, and then when we explode, it's like a complete mess. And that's when people call us crazy. I think it's important to understand as West Indians that our minds, just like our bodies, can be broken, they can be hurt, they can become sick, and we need to nurture them just like we do our bodies. We drink 3 liters of water a day, we emphasize getting proper exercise and eating green leafy vegetables and having our vitamins, but you know, sometimes when it comes to our mental health, we just focus on prayer. And prayer is not the answer to mental health issues. It is one of the things that can be used to help mental health issues. But listen, there's a reason why psychologists and psychiatrists exist. If you have cancer, you're not going to pray it away. You're going to go to the doctor and you're going to get help. If you have diabetes, you're not going to pray it away. If you have a broken leg, best believe you need a cast. You can't pray the bones back in place. All right, it's the same thing with our mind. It is important to utilize the resources that we have, and it is important to facilitate a conversation which allows us to be comfortable with opening up with each other. And providing those resources is absolutely essential for the betterment of our entire nation, because a nation with a broken mind cannot thrive. We cannot thrive economically, socially, in any aspect of progression. It's important to have proper mental health, and it begins with a conversation. It begins with being vulnerable. It begins with listening. One of the things that I found very helpful when I was suffering in solitude with my mental health was listening to Tibetan singing bowls. I'm gonna put a link in the description box, but I found this, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just helped to still my mind. No, so it's not in the article. If you find yourself in situations which are toxic, do not second guess your gut feeling, your intuition. If you are in a toxic space, your body will resist. You will get sick. You will get depressed. And I think that's one thing that I wish that I had done sooner. And this goes right across the board. Sometimes we're in situations and we think that we're supposed to be in those situations, and we force ourselves to stay in that situation, or other people gaslight us or make us feel guilty for wanting to leave. And that has happened many times throughout my life, and I realized that my body rebels, it gets sick, and I need to listen to my body more. And this might be the case for many of you. This could be a relationship, this could be a friendship, this could even be like a home living situation, this could be a job. There are just so many times in life where we force ourselves to stay in situations for whatever the reason. It could be for monetary gain, it could be because we want to live like an affluent lifestyle, it could be for like a name, just so many different things. It could be because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. I am telling you, trust your gut instinct. When it's time to move on from a place, no one else can tell you to stay. People can look around and be like, oh, you're making a horrible decision, you're not making the right decision. But if deep down inside you know that you have to do what's best for your mind and your body and your spirit, do it. So yeah, that's my advice on dealing with post-grad depression for the class of 2020 and beyond. My name is Celine, aka Siljo. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to share with a friend, subscribe, and make sure to engage in the healthy dialogue in the comment section. Until next time, bye.